Welcome to this episode of Pen to Paper Press Podcast. I'm Cindy Coaches. I enjoy speaking with authors, writers, editors, publishers, and creative souls about the process of developing our stories to completing our works of art. Each episode is an opportunity for us to explore mindsets, pearls of wisdoms, and the experiences that began our journey as an author from the moment we put pen to paper. After 54 treatment facilities for alcoholism, across 12 states, 4 DUIs, 3 fractured vertebrae, and 2 stints in jail, Charlie Gray found sobriety on July 8, 2020. Between then and the summer of 2021, Charlie penned his memoir chronicling his journey of alcoholism and self-discovery. In July of this year, Charlie published At Least I'm Not the Frog, a zany memoir of alcoholism and recovery. Welcome, Charlie. It is so good to speak with you today.
Hi, yes, it's so nice to speak with you too.
The title, I love the title of your book, and it intrigues me. At least I'm not the frog. There's literally and figuratively a story behind that name. What or who inspired it?
Yes, definitely. I've gotten this question a lot, and I'm so thankful that I keep getting it, because when I first set out to write, I didn't know what I was going to title it, and I wasn't too super concerned with that in the beginning, because I just wanted to write. But then as I got closer to finishing, I was like, the title is very important, super important. So actually, I had not written that little piece about the title until pretty much the last week before I sent it off to be edited. But through the course of my life, I had been using this personal mantra of at least I'm not the frog. And it stems from this encounter with my aunt after I had just received my third DUI. I had just gotten out of the psych ward, got my car out of impound, drove 80 miles home, and was sitting on the porch with my aunt and just really thought that life could get no worse for me. It did. It got much worse. But at the time, I thought it was the lowest it could be. And she looked over and we saw this snake eating this frog. And I just made a comment of, well, at least I'm not the frog. And then it really stuck with me over the years. So when I finally came time to write, I was like, well, this is the perfect title. Yeah. And maybe it'll make people take a second look or something,
Right. And so much symbolization in all of that as well. And, because, there are some days we feel like the frog, and some days,
yes,
we're the snake looking at dinner going, I'm hungry. So
yes. And there was some great symbolism. Actually, the gentleman who did my cover design and the illustrator he worked with, they gave me 2 options. And the second option, the reason I chose the first option is because there's a frog. If people buy the paperback, there's a frog on the back of the book too, the same type of frog. And the designer and the illustrator, the reason they did that is because they were like, they read the story, obviously. And they were like, when we finished, you broke free of the vodka. So the vodka is the snake. Yes. You are the frog. So we wanted to show you free on the back. And I was like wiping away tears, like, oh my gosh, that's so deep.
Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really sweet. Yeah.
That, that is an artist. When they can pull so much out of your story and be able to apply it to the cover and back cover. Yeah, you're right. Symbolism, overwhelm, which is great.
Yeah.
And
so touching. So, yeah.
It is, because they paid attention, because so many times, I have a couple author friends that have, gotten their book their book covers and gone, they obviously don't know me, and what? Yeah, exactly. And so that's wonderful that they got you and they got the message. So
yes, I was so pleased. And actually, if I can, I would like to just say how I came across him, because I know that a lot of self-published authors, that's a big challenge.
Yes.
Most people think, let me go to Fiverr. Actually, the most useful thing I found when writing my book was reedsy.com.
Okay.
And that gives you, it's a great online platform that you do all of your work in there. It typesets your book for you for both an EPUB, MOBI file, and PDF. And then you're able to hire editors, hire cover designers, everything. So it's a great tool for self-publishing authors.
All right. Thank you for that pearl of wisdom. And
yeah.
It is appreciated. And, coming back to writing the book, for many individuals navigating the ups and downs of life, I mean, we all have them. The severity of the downs, of course, varies from individual to individual, and the perception of the down, obviously, is a perception. But for many, they have found writing their thoughts and feelings on paper helps them to give words where they literally can't verbalize what they're trying to say. So did writing have that kind of impact on your recovery? And, if so, how did writing help you?
Yes, writing, and I didn't know how important writing was to me and how healing it was to me until I got about halfway through the writing process. Because you see, anytime, like you said in the beginning, I was at 54 institutions, and that's a lot of institutions. There's a big audience of us that have gone about 6 to 8. Nobody's gone 54 times. So in those 54 treatment centers, that is where I wrote. I would get sober, and then, yes, exactly that. I wasn't able to verbalize. I wasn't even able to conceptualize unless it was coming from my hand. Mm-hmm. That's when the truth came out of me, is when I put that pen to the paper. I think what it was is I was able to get it out without judging myself. It was just coming through my arm onto the paper. And then I would go back and read that. And I learned in writing the book who I was. It was very healing. But the reason that I didn't know that writing could do that for me is because the only time I wrote prior to the book was in those treatment facilities. And then I'd get out, I'd relapse, and of course I didn't write. I just put the journal down because I wanted to be drunk, and I, you can't focus and you can't write. So I didn't know that it was as healing as it was until I'd been sober on my own for a couple of months, and it saved my life. It helped me cope through a lot of the trauma that I thought I had worked through, with therapists all over the country. And I hadn't. It wasn't until I was just sitting on my MacBook writing that I was like, I would be elated sometimes because I would know that something was being lifted from me. I would sob and cry sometimes, just thinking about the damage I had done to myself and my family. But that was cathartic. It allowed me to go through those emotions. It gave me the capability to make this huge timeline of my life and really walk through the years and trying to remember, what was going on then. Of course, it's hard for any of us to remember great details, but you throw on top of that gallons of vodka and blackouts, every day. But it's amazing what the mind still has in it and what you can find if you just dig deep and you start that writing process. I am very active in the recovery community, and I'm always telling people, like, listen, just journal, just sit down and journal, and it's going to change your life. And I've heard from so many people that, yeah, it really did. I didn't know who I was until I wrote it. So I think it's just the most amazing gift that we have, that we can do, that we've, have created. And it's a wonderful outlet, not just for creativity, but just for healing. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. I wholeheartedly agree. Being able to find an outlet that allows us to pour our soul out, pour our heartbreak out, pour out our accomplishments, because it's not all about, self-defeating. We're not, that
Exactly.
is not the purpose of journaling, is not to beat the snot out of ourselves. It is to become aware of self, see how what we've done has an impact on this aspect, and also a reflection of the good. Where we're listing the gratitudes, the things we're grateful for, without it, necessarily being a gratitude list, because that is one thing that a lot of people say to do, is that gratitude list. When you can't think of anything to write, then start writing what you're grateful for. So that you don't rabbit hole and go down the, I suck, I can't do anything right, that pivotal downfall that, yes, all of us go through, whether we want to admit it or not, we all do it.
Yes.
And if you don't, you know what, you're not doing it. That's pretty much how I look at it. Because for me, writing has also saved my life. It saved my life when I was 16 years old. And, so, and I know countless other people that have said similar, that it was what made them see them for them, see self as who they are, and, oh, wait, can I change this? How can I change this? Do I want to change this? And so forth. So, yeah, I wholeheartely agree that writing is so vital. And it doesn't mean you have to publish it either, No,
not at all. No, and I honestly, I didn't know I was going to publish when I first started writing. It wasn't until I'd gone a little bit down the road that I was like, oh, you should probably get this out there for people that are struggling, Yeah. So, you can write for yourself. I think it's just as important as writing to publish. Yeah.
Well, and if you're writing to unlock something in your head, and you're trying to verbalize what you can't, and you look at, and you go with the intent of journaling as, this is going to be a memoir, you will immediately screech to a halt all momentum of writing, because because then you're editing. What do I want readers to see? And so when you bear yourself on the page, as what was it, Hemingway that said, bleed on the page. When you just bear it, and just to get it out of your head, don't edit, don't think of, and truly, if you don't want anybody to read it, dispose of it in a way that nobody will ever be able to read it. But there is something about keeping it too, because it gives you that opportunity to look back and go, whoa, look where I've been, look where I am now, wow, look what I did.
I agree. And you know what even is nice too? I mean, it's great to be able to look at a journal entry from a couple years ago and read and be like, oh man, I've come so far. It's also really rewarding to look and be like, how did I fall this far? And then it gives you this little moment of like, okay, but I was there once, so I know I can get there. So it really can work either way for me. It can bolster me if I'm down, or it can help me be appreciative if I'm up, So I think what you've said is just so true and important, is that just get it out. I guess do dispose of it if you want to. I would not recommend that. I would recommend keeping it. Mm-hmm. But I understand if there is the need. I have a friend that I've had in my life that I met at a treatment center for a long time. And what she does is she will go into her Gmail and like she's going to email herself and just write everything she needs. And then she just deletes it. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. You just get it out and then you throw it away and you're done. So if anyone wants to try that, it works very well for her.
And it is an individual thing, because there are people who just need to express it, get it out, let it go, and done. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then there are some like me who, look back at it and go, wow, okay, so that's where I was at. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Yes. Okay.
It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's an awareness.
Okay. Yeah. An awareness. Yes. So funny. Yes.
So, okay. So we hit on a topic of writer's block. Now, you wrote a book, and when writing a book, most writers, not every writer, most writers do hit that spot where they're like staring at the blank screen going, oh, bugger, what do I write? So that writer's block, that lack of inspiration. Did you come across that for your book that you wrote? Did you? Okay.
I did. Yes. And I think it kind of ties in with something that you had just said. If you go into it saying, I'm going to write this memoir and it's going to change people's lives, then you've shot yourself in the foot. And that happened to me halfway through when I realized, okay, I am going to put this out there because I have had opportunities that really no one else has had. Mm-hmm. And it's important that I say this. When I started thinking, when I put my focus on how am I going to get it out there? How are people going to hear about it? How is it going to save? Then I didn't know what to write. I didn't know how to structure it. I lost everything. So I had to reel it back in and say, no, this is for you. You've got to write this for you. And if you keep it for you, that's how you're going to help everyone else. And it really changed the tone of my book. It softened it. I wasn't trying to be as garish, be like, I've got to show the depravity to just really get it in people's face. And then I realized, no, I don't know what you're writing for, but you're not writing for the truth in doing that. So I really had to pull it back into self and write for me. And then it was just like touch paper, man. I was just right back on track. But I'm writing a novella right now, and it's like a follow-up to At Least I'm Not the Frog. When I started it, I started in that same mind frame of, I just want to do this for myself. Mm-hmm. And then hit chapter 3 and thought, well, wait, I just sold a bunch of books in Canada. So the Canadians are going to want a certain thing, and then I got all in my head and it all went to pot again. So I think it's so important that you stay true to yourself. You don't get in your head. Yeah. You don't future trip. You just put your story on the paper, and then it grows into this amazing, I say it wrote itself is what I say. I had that one little blip when I got out of self, and then I got back to myself, and I didn't write it in order. The ending was the last thing I wrote. The beginning was the second to last thing I wrote, so it was written all out of order. Yeah. But my subconscious knew what story I wanted to tell. And if I just trusted myself to let my fingers do the work, it was going to be good. So trusted myself and stayed into self and you can't worry about if it's going to be a bestseller or if people are going to like it. You can't do that. You've got to do it for yourself. And I think that's where the writer's block comes from.
Yeah, you couldn't have said that no apologies. No apologies necessary. What you said is, that's it. I couldn't have said it any better.
Thank you. I thought a lot about it. I've thought a lot about it when I had that writer's block. I was like, what is wrong? And then it just came to me. So great. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Well, and that is the case for many of us. And what did you say? The future self? How did the...
future tripping.
Future tripping. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brilliant term. Because
it's a recovery term. Yeah.
Is it? Okay. Because it gets you out of the now, because the now is right now, and that's the
only thing that matters.
Right. The past is the past. The future may or may not happen, and if it does, you got to take 6 different. You have the opportunity to take 6 different paths to get to that future trip. And what if you don't take that future, that path that takes you to the future that you anticipated? So staying in the now has, and that is hard. That is a hard concept to, especially.
It's hard to implement too.
It is, because so many of us have that. You got to have a goal. You got to write it all out. You got to plan everything. Where are you going? What are you doing? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And so, yeah.
Yes. And my advice to new writers is don't go on YouTube until you've finished your first draft. Because if you go anywhere and start trying to analyze writing, that's also like a mess too. So there's a little bit of wisdom too. Like, just, you do need to know some stuff, but stay off YouTube until you're done, because they're just going to get you in your head.
Good point. Thank you for sharing that. And so ideally, when do you like to write? Is it in the morning or?
So actually, when I find that I do my best work and when it flows the most is from about 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. Very much like a night owl writer. And I think what it is I like the idea of everyone is like sleeping right now. No one can contact me. I'm entirely left alone. And it really, I get my oils diffusing, I get my tea and my lighting. I have to have this space. I'm one of those writers that I can do it in an airport or a laundromat or anywhere, but the quality isn't as good. If I'm in my space with my things, it's just like, it just pours from me. So yeah, the night is the best time for me to write, or very, very early in the morning, right before the sun comes up, and then with the sun coming up is a great time for me to write as well. Middle of the day, can't do it. But I don't know why, but I think it's just how we are as writers. I think every writer, has their environment and their time that it's like, man, that's when I do my work. It's when I've got everything set up the way I need it to be.
Yes.
Then it just flows. Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to do more journaling in the morning or just before I go to bed. And when I write, it's typically slipped in between things. I don't have a set schedule or anything like that. And I think if I had a set schedule, I would be applying too much pressure on myself that, gotta do it now. Come on, Cindy, let's go, girl. And
this is the time that you're supposed to be. Yeah, I understand that too. Yep.
Yeah, but it's also the freedom of being able to set that rhythm when it works for me with the life that I'm currently, living through.
Yeah. Yep.
So one thing I really, really wanted to hit on, and I really want to congratulate you because it's not an easy task or goal to acquire, is your book reached #1 new release on Amazon in 3 categories: alcoholism, substance abuse, the 12-step programs. As a self-published, again, we mentioned it earlier, you're a self-published author. This is not an easy feat. It's really not. So what pearls of wisdom would you like to share with aspiring writers hoping to rank well on these best-selling lists?
Yes, I'm so happy that I have the opportunity the platform to explain this, because I'll explain why I say to stay off YouTube until you've got your manuscript done. So what I did, and I think it was just divine intervention, that something whispered in my ear, like, write it and then worry about publishing it. So I wrote it and I finished it on May 31st, 2021. In June, what I started doing is that's when I went to YouTube, because I knew nothing about the publishing publishing industry. I still thought that you had to mail your manuscript to a publishing house. I mean, I knew nothing. Mm-hmm. So when I got online, what I figured out was this whole world of self-publishing. And then and this is what is troublesome, because I think as writers, our brain is not really set up to like think business, like mine at least isn't. I'm a much more artistic soul. So it was kind of a challenge for me to be like, okay, wait, sales rank is important, and like promotion and advertising is important. So I watched a lot of content on, what does going wide mean? What does KDP select? What does all of this mean? And I really had to educate myself for about a month. I read everything I could. I watched everything I could. I just wanted to learn about the publishing industry. And what I kept coming across, for me, I thought it was best to just publish exclusively on Amazon. And what I came across was you really have to identify your target audience, and of course that's like something you always hear and people talk about, but that's how I was able to achieve number one, because I looked at the books that were similar to mine. I looked at recovery memoirs. Where on the Amazon page, if you go down, you can see the sales rank of any book, and see like, where are they trending? And I figured out those categories. And then there's some back end stuff you can do with Amazon that they don't really tell you about. You can be in more than 2 categories. You can be in up to 10. So there's a lot of stuff they don't tell you about. You really have to dig and learn. That's how I was able to achieve number one, was just very strategic, calculated understanding of how the system works.
Okay.
And it benefited me. I learned a lot about, what are they? SEO, search engine optimization. Yeah. I learned a lot about that. I just knew I had to learn about the nitty gritty of the publishing industry, or I was never going to get to anyone. So yeah, I spent a solid month. I took off a couple of months from work to finish the book and get it ready to publish. So I did have that luxury that I understand some people don't have. But there's some great content on YouTube. There's some great articles out there, some great blogs that really, self-publishing has been going on long enough now that there's a lot of resources for us. I don't think back in, 11 and 12, they had this type of resources that we have now.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a matter of understanding what it means to self-publish, understanding that you don't have backing from anyone. You don't have a platform. You have to build it all on your own. And it's hard. And I started a blog before I published the book, and just what anyone will tell you is I literally told everyone I knew, I'm writing this book. Here's when it's publishing. Here, will you purchase it? Will you give me a review maybe after you read it? I did all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it worked to my advantage, and it was work. I think that's what happens to a lot of authors, is they put so much work in the writing of it that then they just go and self-publish, and they don't really put the work in for, okay, but what does it mean to self-publish? Random House is not putting me everywhere. I'm the only one. So you have to be your own businessman and your own businessman or woman, and your own writer.
Yes, agreed. And, for many, that getting out there and saying, hey, I wrote a book, will you buy it? Or, that self-promotion is difficult for many because of the fact that, that fear of rejection is pretty strong. So how did you overcome any of that that fear of rejection, or did you seep in it and go, holy crap, now I got to do this too?
Honestly, so by the time I had finished the manuscript, I knew I had written something that I wasn't able to find in the recovery literature genre. You know,
Okay.
it's a huge genre. Quit lit is what it's called. It's huge. But I wasn't ever able to find a story that took me through the whole addiction. You know, usually it's like focused on rehab or just the first year of sobriety, or maybe it's just focused on when it was the worst. And I never had anyone give me a big picture, give me, here's where I was at before it happened, here's where I was at when it happened, and here's where I was at when it was over. So when I went into it knowing that I wanted to do that and that I was writing for others that had been in similar experiences, that really shielded and protected me from the fear of rejection or criticism, because I knew that the people that I was writing it for, that it was going to resonate with them.
Right.
And so it was more of this feeling of, I'm doing it for us. I'm very protective of the recovery community, especially those of us that relapse is such a part of our story that it takes us so long to get sober, and everyone's given up on us, but we haven't given up on ourselves. And I was writing for them. So I knew if they were going to be like, thank you, that's all that mattered. If only one of them said thank you, that's all that mattered. So I did from a lot of that. Now I am submitting to literary agents. I started in the middle of September, just because it's so difficult as a self-published author to reach, you know, the big masses. And so I was afraid. I was like, oh, are you going to, if when they decline you, how are you going to handle this? Because you were very protected before, you were self-published, you know? So when I have gotten several declines, but what I remember, I just keep remembering, you're doing this for them. You know, it's not for you, it's for them. And so I would say if someone has written something and they're afraid of that rejection, if that story came from your heart and you knew who you were writing it for, even if it's a story about, you know, just something silly, I shouldn't say silly, not something as hard hitting as getting your life back together, you know, maybe just a rom-com novel. It's important to that audience too. So just know that audience is ready and waiting for it, and let the other chatter just be chatter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't devalue you as a writer. It doesn't mean that you don't have talent. That art is so subjective that you just gotta stay with the positive, and you gotta let the critics just have their say. I mean, they're probably bitter anyways. So well, right for you and your audience. Yes.
You said something weaved in this last bit that really, I wrote it down because I didn't want to lose what you had said. Write for self, publish for others. Publish for those that are going to resonate with this.
Yes.
And that in itself will help anybody who is, okay, I don't really want to promote, I don't want to really get out there, I don't want to, you know, be seen as such. When they flip it around that I am published this for someone who needs this content, whatever it is, how to macrame, or, you know, the rom-com, or the whatever. There's always a message within our books. There always is. If there's no message, then there's really, you know, no book.
No book. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So, you know, and if you flip that around, your perception of, you know, why are you writing your book? What is the why? Why is it so important for me to share this? What are the benefits that somebody's going to get out of this? That just kind of launches you and gets you into that whole other realm of, oh, yeah, okay. I'm not scared as much.
Yeah, it's kind of like putting bubble wrap. Yeah.
Yes, bubble wrap that we sit there and pinch the little bubbles and pop, pop.
Yeah, yeah. And we're safe, and we're not worried about, you know, because we're not writing for everyone. We're writing for our audience for that particular message. Right. And I think what happens to us is we get worried about what people outside of our audience are going to say. And the truth is, it doesn't really matter what they say because it wasn't written for them.
Right.
We knew that wasn't written for them. So this isn't for you. There's something else for you, but this is for these people. And that's all I can do is just be in a, almost like a relationship, with these people. I can't focus on all the others. So I think that's important too, what you just said.
It is. Yes. And the other thing is you can't hold yourself back because one person might not like it, because there's probably 100 people who need your content, and especially in your case, because obviously you have been there, done that, rode that pony. You've experienced it. You walk through the journey. You're on the side of the journey, and what you choose to do with that journey is completely up to you. But the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, and say, hey, you know what? I'm here to help you. Let me help you. Can I help you? Yeah, there's something to be said for that. And in many cases, that's, again, the purpose of the book, is to help somebody to better their situation in one way or another.
I agree.
It's not all about entertainment.
It's not. It's really not.
In some cases, yes, but there's always a message within it. So I did go on to Amazon and I looked up your Amazon page and your sales page for the book, and because I wanted to learn a little bit more about the memoir before we spoke, and I found something that touched my heart, and I would really love to share it. And I think it's about when you're scrolling about halfway down the page, and it says, "Listen, friends, I stopped the madness, the depravity, the shame and the guilt. How? I started to forgive and nurture myself, to love and cherish the beautiful, perfectly imperfect man I am. For those who feel wrong, wasted, or useless, you are not. Take a gander at my stories, where you will find a skinny gay boy who couldn't quit drinking until he did. It is possible. You are not hopeless. It took 54 million times before I was able to see the light, but I saw it nonetheless. And you shall too. This I know for sure. Let's start your journey together, shall we?" That right there encompasses this whole entire conversation.
Yes.
And, and your book. Because we are all just walking each other home. We really are. Yeah. And so for you, finding that self-love, and and you got me choking up here.
It got me a little emotional too, because I haven't. I published that on there, but I remember writing that, and I wrote that very quickly. It just came from something beyond me, and then I uploaded it, and I haven't really gone back to it since. But you're exactly right. That is the essence of who I am at this point in my life. That's what I've become. Is I was so alone, and I felt so wrong, and I was so sad for so many years that I know there's so many other people, and I want them to know those things, and it's been so beautiful. I've had people read the book and reach out to me that are in the recovery community, and the response that I've gotten has just been I didn't even know that was going to come, but some people have gotten sober. Some people have stayed sober. Some people have been relapsing, but turning to the book for support. And so it just really feels like it doesn't feel like I don't know them. It feels like I know them because we've lived the same life. And it's beautiful. So thank you so much for reading that, because it got me a little bit emotional too. So that's cool. Yeah.
Well, because people have this thing about self-love, granted, I'm definitely not a pro at it. I'm working on it. It's a daily, process for me and for the majority of everybody. But taking the steps to put ourselves first. What's the line they always tell you when you get onto an airplane is, when the masks drop, put it on yourself first.
Do yourself first, yes.
Because you can't save the next person if you can't breathe. And, so we have to remember that. And for you to walk the journey that you did and to realize that, oh, wait a minute, I got to take care of me. Oh, well, how do I do that? That is something that we all go through in all walks of life and stuff. And what was one thing for you in regards to self-love that really honed it in for you that I can do this? I can love myself.
There were a couple moments. One of them I kind of wrote about in At Least I'm Not the Frog. I believe it's like chapter 11, when I'm in the psychiatric ward in Kansas. And this is kind of when the self-love started to creep in, is for the first time, I was able to look at myself objectively. I was able to look at myself in my life without shaming myself, without, berating myself. I was able just to see this boy that was so broken, that did not want to be broken, that loved his family, that loved life, but could not. And what you just said was so beautiful. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't find myself. And when I saw him in the psych ward, it was such a surreal experience. That's when my heart started to melt a little bit. I started to say, this boy is not bad. He has just had badness thrust upon him.
Right.
But when I was able to see myself as just a human, then the journey of self-love really started to open up for me. And as the months went on and I kind of navigated getting an apartment and getting into sobriety for the first time, and then I'd been sober for a couple months, and then I realized the importance of forgiving myself, of loving myself, and of being my own friend, being my own champion, being happy and proud of myself. All these things that touch people regardless of if they're addicted or if they can't stop drinking or something like that. I mean, like you said, everyone deals with this. Life is not easy. I do not think we are wired to think that we are the best thing on the planet. I think we're very much wired to kind of be self-deprecating and demeaning. And I think it's so detrimental to our existence, because as soon as you can love yourself, my compassion for others just increased tenfold. And I really was able, I actually joked not too long ago, I was like, it's so hard knowing why everyone is doing everything. Maybe not necessarily I know their exact thoughts or motives, but I know that they're just trying to survive and they're doing the best they can. And now that I can see that, my compassion is so much larger. I'm so much happier because I'm not angry with people anymore. I understand that they're just trying. And that is my hope. I know that self-love is not easy. I know that forgiving yourself is not easy. Right. And it seems like this elusive concept that only celebrities with money can have. And it's not. It's really just about being in the moment, about working very slowly with yourself, about to become self-aware, about trying to be patient with yourself. There's all these little things that you do, and they start to build you. Yes. And then you look one day and you're like, oh, wow, I'm back. Thank God, So I understand, and I always like to make it very clear that I know I'm very happy now. And I know it's very easy for me to sit here and say these things. But to the person out there that is listening that is not happy, that does not love themselves, it is possible. It really is. It's not BS that we're just blowing up your butt. Like it's true. Yeah. But it's hard work. But you can do it. Anyone can do it. Anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a great way to kind of, you got me in tears.
Oh.
Because, yeah. And so, beautiful way to wrap up our time together. How can people find you on the internet?
Sure thing. Yes. So if you would like to just read my blog or kind of learn more about me, you can go to atleastimnotthefrog.com. If you're wanting to purchase my memoir, you can go to amazon.com or whatever it may be in your country. I do have a lot of international readers, so that's awesome.
Good. Congratulations.
And then you just type in, yes, it's been really cool. It was really cool, Canada and Australia. But when you go on Amazon, all you have to do is just type in, At Least I'm Not the Frog, Charlie Gray. Gray is spelled Gray, and then it'll pop up and you can purchase your copy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You warmed my heart, and
thank you.
You know, I appreciate you. Thank you for writing your story, for keep going, you know, when you didn't want to. So there is something very very courageous in that, and you are definitely helping others to get past what it is they need to get through, because again, we're all walking each other home. And yeah. the tears are rolling.
Good tears. It's good tears. It's all right. It's all right.
Good. It is good tears. And yeah, thank you for everything, and
thank you.
My best to you. Keep
you
going
as well.
Keep going with what you're doing, because you are definitely, you know, I've coined the phrase years and years ago, your words have power, your story matters. And I truly cannot think of anyone who really deserves to hear that. You know, your story matters, and holy moly, your words, they have so much power.
Oh, now you're making me all misty.
Oh, sorry, but not sorry.
Oh, that's so sweet. No, thank you. That is just so beautiful, and it's so true for anyone. I feel like, you know, your words have power, and your story does matter, and that's, yeah. Thank you. That is like the most amazing. Oh, and it's recorded. I'm so happy. That's the best compliment I've ever got. So thank you.
Yes, you'll be able to hear this over and over and over.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, this has been so fun. Thank you.
Oh, Charlie, thank you. I am beyond grateful. I truly did need this message today. So, and I know a lot of other people who will need this message as well. So, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we end our time together, I'd like to say thank you for listening to my conversation with Charlie Gray. To access his website and purchase the book he has written, visit pentopaperpress.com/podcast and select the show notes page for this episode. To receive future episodes in your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter and follow the podcast on your favorite application. You are invited to share your favorite episode with the individuals who will resonate with this content. The intention of Pen to Paper Press podcast is to reinforce that our words have power and our stories matter. To share this important message, I created several mug designs for you to choose from with my artwork. These are perfect for enjoying your favorite beverage when listening to this podcast series. You will find an array of products available for purchase at pentopaperpress.com/store. Take care. Until next time, keep your pen to paper and write. Your words have power, and your story matters. Bye for now.